It's a strange feeling, returning to a place you've only ever dreamed of. That's how it was with the house on Hemlock Lane. I'd seen it countless times in my sleep, a looming Victorian silhouette against a bruised twilight sky. The peeling white paint, the single-lit window on the second floor, the overgrown garden strangling the porch. It was all exactly as I'd pictured. The shoal sail sign was a faded, splintered thing, practically swallowed by weeds. It felt less like an invitation and more like a warning. My real estate agent, a perpetually cheerful woman named Carol, had called it a fixer-upper with character. An understatement, to say the least. But the price was impossible to ignore, and something deeper, a pull I couldn't explain, told me this was it. This was home. As Carol fumbled with the ancient lock, a cold draft slipped from the keyhole, smelling of dust and something else. Something like rain on old stone. The moment I stepped inside, the air thickened, pressing in on me. The house was a time capsule. Furniture draped in white sheets stood like ghostly sentinels. A grand staircase swept upwards into the gloom, and a grandfather clock stood silent in the corner, its hands frozen at 3:13. Everything was coated in a thick, velvety layer of dust, yet it didn't feel abandoned. It felt dormant, waiting. Carol prattled on about potential and good bones, but her voice seemed to come from a great distance. My attention was fixed on the wall at the end of the hallway. Beneath decades of grime, faint pencil marks were visible. A height chart. I ran my fingers over the faded lines, tracing names I didn't recognize. Eleanor, 1928. Thomas, 1945, until my fingers stopped on the very last mark. It was lower down, at a child's height, dated just 10 years ago. The name was smudged, but I could just make it out. It was my name. My blood ran cold. I'd never been to this town, let alone this house. I was an orphan, raised in a series of foster homes hundreds of miles away. It had to be a coincidence. A different person with the same name. But as I stared at the faint script, a memory flickered a laugh. The feel of a cool wooden floor under my bare feet, the scent of baking bread. It was gone as quickly as it came, leaving an ache of phantom nostalgia. "Everything okay?" Carl asked, noticing my silence. I just nodded, unable to speak. I bought the house. I had to. I needed to understand the pull, the impossible memory. The first few weeks were a blur of work. I tore up carpets, patched plaster, and painted walls. I tried to impose my own life onto the house, to scrub away its past. But the house resisted. Tools would go missing, only to reappear in places I'd already checked. Doors I'd locked would be found ajar. At night, I'd hear whispers, faint as the rustling of leaves, seeming to come from the walls themselves. One evening, while clearing out the attic, I found a small wooden chest tucked away under the eaves. It wasn't locked. Inside, nestled on a bed of yellowed lace, was a collection of children's toys. A single porcelain doll with a cracked face, a set of wooden blocks, and a worn-out storybook. I opened the book. The title was The Boy Who Lived in the Walls. On the inside cover, in a child's clumsy handwriting, was my name again. I started reading, and a chilling sense of familiarity washed over me. The story was about a lonely boy who had no family, so the house became his family. The walls were his friends, the floors were his playground, and the drafts were its whispers. The boy was happy, but he knew he couldn't stay forever. He had to go out into the world and forget, so he could one day return and remember. The last page had a drawing of a house. It was this house. That night, the whispers were clearer. They weren't just random sounds anymore. They were forming words. My name, over and over. It came from the vents, from beneath the floorboards, from the very frame of the house. I huddled under my blankets, heart pounding in my chest. I wasn't just living in a haunted house. I was living inside a memory. Desperate for answers, I drove to the town's historical society the next day. The old clerk, Mr. Abernathy, looked at me over his spectacles when I mentioned the address on Hemlock Lane. "The Blackwood House," he said, his voice low. "Tragic story there. The last family, the Millers, lost their son about 10 years ago. He just vanished. They searched for weeks. The parents eventually moved away, broken-hearted. They said the house took him." He pulled out a file of old newspaper clippings. My hands trembled as I looked at the photograph of the missing boy. He was about 7 years old, with wide, curious eyes and a familiar, shy smile. It was me. The article detailed my disappearance. My name wasn't the one I'd been given by the foster system. It was the name from the height chart, the name from the storybook. It all crashed down on me. I wasn't an orphan who had stumbled upon a strange house. I was the boy who had vanished. But where had I been? How did I end up hundreds of miles away with no memory of my first 7 years of life? I returned to the house, the truth a heavy weight in my gut. The front door was wide open, swinging gently in the breeze. Inside, the dust sheets were gone. The grandfather clock was ticking, its steady rhythm like a heartbeat. The air was warm, and the scent of baking bread filled the hallway. The whispers weren't whispers anymore. They were clear voices. A woman humming a lullaby. A man laughing. Children playing. They were the echoes of my family. The echoes the house had saved for me. I walked to the height chart. The smudge over my name was gone, and below it, a new mark had appeared, freshly drawn in pencil. It was at my current height. There was no name, just a date, today's date, and beside it, one word, welcome. I climbed the stairs, drawn towards the second-floor window, the one that was always lit in my dreams. The door was ajar. Peeking inside, I saw a child's bedroom, just as I remembered it. The bed was neatly made, the storybook sat on the knitstand, and the wooden blocks were stacked on the rug. And for a moment, just a fleeting moment, I saw a young boy sitting on the floor, looking up at me with my own eyes. He smiled, and then faded like smoke. I wasn't scared anymore. The house hadn't taken me. It had protected me. It had hidden me away, sent me out into the world, and held on to my memories until I was ready to find my way back. Why? I still don't know. Perhaps some tragedies are too great for a child to bear. Perhaps some places love you so much, they'll do anything to keep you safe, even if it means making you forget. I live here now. The voices are my companions. They're the ghosts of my family, kept alive by the love embedded in these walls. Sometimes, late at night, I hear a new sound. The faint scratching of a pencil. The house is still keeping track. It's a strange life, living in a house that remembers you better than you remember yourself. But it's my life. I'm finally home. And I know, no matter what, I'll never be lost again.